Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision-makers. This week I'm talking with Dave Colebrook, the president of LSR and Emerging Brands with the Canadian restaurant company Recipe. Dave oversees the franchise New York Fries, a brand that was born in New York in 1983, but primarily grew across Canada before re-entering the U.S. earlier this year. It's grown to become a $100 million brand in Canada and really wants to now conquer the U.S. and is looking for more growth across the states. Dave joined the podcast to talk about how this brand plans to reconquer its original homeland and why malls are its real estate sweet spot. In this interview, you will learn more about why malls are not dead, why sampling is the perfect marketing tool for high foot traffic destinations, and why a strong product plus good economics can help a brand transcend borders. Jumping now into my interview with New York Fries' Dave Colebrook. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 4 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Dave Colebrook, the president of LSR and Emerging Chains for Recipe. Dave, thanks for taking some time today.
Great to be here, Sam.
So Recipe is the parent company here, but we're specifically talking about New York Fries. Tell me about Recipe. Tell me about New York Fries and its role within that company.
Yeah, so Recipe is a large acquisitor of brands. We have 19 brands in total that operate primarily in Canada, but we also operate internationally with some sites in the U.S. and other markets. Very, very large organization with over 1,200 restaurants. And within that holding company is a company called New York Fries, which is a company that was acquired about 5 years ago by Recipe. The team is still intact, but is a really unique business. New York Fries started in New York. It started on South Street Pier. A gentleman, an entrepreneur, saw it, brought it to Canada, and proceeded to start to proliferate in Canada, primarily in malls. Saw it really worked, and it's a great story because actually he went back down to the U.S. and actually down to New York, to the original sort of creator of New York Fries, and paid for the trademark and the rights and actually bought the gentleman out, and all along was paying royalties to him. So it was a great ethics story. The team that he built is still with New York Fries. So the COO has 30 years, the head of operations is 25 years, the head of marketing has 20 years experience. So there's this great team that built New York Fries in malls, essentially every mall in Canada, as well as some malls in the UAE. So we've been in the UAE for about 15, 20 years. And really the plan here is to bring New York Fries, almost like the prodigal son, back down to the US. And so we're starting in New York, where it all started, technically actually starting in Long Island in New Jersey, in 4 malls. So Newport, Smith Haven, Roosevelt, and Menlo Park are the 4 malls that we're in right now. And just getting going and starting to build the brand and get people trying New York Fries, and then from there start to franchise. So that's kind of the journey that we're on, with a big focus on growth in the U.S.
Tell me about the product, because fries, I mean, you can get fries everywhere, right? Yeah. What is distinct about this product?
Yeah, so it is, we believe, the best fry in the world. And it is a fresh cut fry. We have a unique process that we own to be able to create them. So we're actually cutting the potatoes in restaurant and then frying them. And then the way that we actually are able to develop the process is fresh cut fries is really hard to do and hard to do well. But if you focus on it, you can deliver an amazing product. And really the key thing is an amazing high quality product and speed, which is typically 2 things that are hard to get together. So the process that the team has come up with allows for us to deliver fries and loaded fries. So in Canada, we call it poutine, but really loaded fries with chili cheese and cheese and bacon and all the stuff, pulled pork, things that you would want on fries. And we can deliver it in essentially under 30 seconds with the process that we have, from the time of order to the time that it comes out from the back and then gets topped. So, you know, we have a very unique process that allows us to have this really high quality product with great speed and actually great margins as well, because we're actually manufacturing the product right from the potato in the back of house.
Got it. Why malls? I mean, I know this brand came up in the 80s and probably really kind of aligned with the rise in malls in the 80s and 90s. But why has that seemed to be kind of the sweet spot for New York fries?
Yeah, the sweet spot for New York fries is that New York fries is a unique product because it works as a snack, but it also works as a meal. So you can come in if you're just out shopping and you just want a little break, you want to get a drink, you can get a little a fry to go along with it. Or if you're there for the full day, you can get a full meal. We have loaded dogs, loaded fries, and drinks, so you can do a combo. And really, because it serves both purposes, it has worked extremely well. And what makes New York fries work is foot traffic. And so we found that, on street locations, if there's really, really high foot traffic, it works. We're not typically the type of location where, you'd see a sign on the highway and you'd pull in for it because it's a little bit more of a snack brand, but it works extremely well in high foot traffic areas. So in Canada, because of the weather, malls is where you get foot traffic in the summer because it's too hot to be outside, or in the winter because it's too cold to be outside. But it would work well in, anywhere south of the Dixon line where you have walking malls. We do have some outdoor malls here in Canada that New York fries performs extremely well at. But the key is that foot traffic and getting that snack and meal occasion. And even I call it the break occasion, which is all the staff that work in these malls, they get 20-minute, 30-minute breaks. So New York fries is great because it has that speed of service, it has that lower check, and it also has that great sort of just snack opportunity where you can go get a quick bite between going back to work again.
Yeah, I imagine you guys really thrive with the impulse buy because, I think if I'm like at a mall and I'm walking by a Cinnabon or an Auntie Anne's and I smell it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I got to stop here. You guys must really thrive with that kind of impulse buy.
100%. That's exactly what we do. And the key strategy to grow the brand is sampling, right? So we found that the way that they built the brand and the way we're starting to build the brand in New York is just getting those fries in people's mouths. So once you get a chance to eat that fry particularly with one of our dips or gravy, typically people make a beeline and buy because it's just so good, right? So when you have one fry, you kind of can't stop at one. So that's the goal, definitely that sampling opportunity to drive the business.
Have all the locations been in Canada until now, or have you had some in US this whole time?
No. So the one in the US, the original location that the entrepreneur owned, closed. So they've primarily been in Canada and some over in the UAE. So primarily in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. So that's the main area that we've been in is Canada. And really we're in most malls and walking malls here in Canada and a few street front locations, but primarily malls.
So we are not so different, the US and Canada, but I'm curious. I love this idea of a brand that starts in the US, moves to Canada, and comes back into the US. I'm curious, tell me a little bit about, besides the poutine, what are some of the, Canadian touches that this brand will bring with it back into the US?
Yeah, it's the good thing is fries and hot dogs are universal, certainly in North America. So loaded fries, loaded dogs. I do think between Canada and the US, there's a lot of very similar eating habits, and people love the same food. So the brands that work well in Canada are also the brands that work well in the US. You see a lot of US brands come into Canada. We believe New York fries, it truly is a beloved brand in Canada, is going to really resonate with Americans just because of the quality of the product, the ability to have this really amazing all beef hot dog. So in Canada, the hot dog's a little bit differently. Went more with a all beef, sort of a bit saltier hot dog in the US. Some of the toppings are a little bit different in the US to, things like queso and some of the spicier offerings that we have. But we still offer poutine, which is, and it's actually selling pretty well. So we still have poutine in there for Americans to try Canadian poutine with cheese curds and gravy. But really the big focus is really about just that loaded fry and loaded dog and driving that impulse occasion and really having it both as a snack brand and a meal brand.
You can already hear it. I'm saying it the American way. Poutine. I'm saying poutine. And you're like, poutine. It just sounds so much more classy when you say it. All right. I want to ask a stupid question here, which is, I hear about some of these Canadian brands that I'm shocked to find out have like 100 locations, and I've never heard of it. I've been doing this for 15 years. And, I just think about, there are brands, you made this point a few moments ago, which is there are some brands in the US that can't crack into Canada. And there are some brands in Canada that can't crack into the US. And I'm just curious about your take on that, because like Tim Hortons, perfect example. the number one coffee seller in Canada, beloved in Canada, and it does okay here. But it's certainly it's not revered like it is in Canada. I'm just curious from your perspective, whether it's operational, whether it's menu, whether it's just trends, why do some brands make it there and not here and vice versa?
Yeah, so I've got a pretty strong theory on that, and it comes down to product and operations, but primarily product. And I fundamentally, if you have it, the brands that work in both markets are the ones with a really great product or really great operations. McDonald's is the ultimate example of, you eat a Big Mac in Shanghai, or you eat a Big Mac in Cincinnati, or you eat a Big Mac in Toronto. The way that they've designed their operations, it's the exact same experience. And so they've really focused on, hey, we're going to deliver this product consistently around the world. And that's been their secret to success. And the value of that food works, right, for consumers across borders and international markets. I think the core item is that two things. One is the quality of the product. And, we really believe for New York fries that once you have that fry and that hot dog, that you will recognize. And if you go on the reviews for New York fries in our first 4 locations, the reviews are all 5 stars across locations. So people are loving the product. So that's when you know that you've got something. Because a lot of times what doesn't translate is the product isn't that big of a wow when people try it and they said, okay, and then kind of it loses its momentum. I think fundamentally at the core, it's got to be a great product. The other side of it is in restaurants, the economic model has to work. And what New York Fries really has this benefit of is that it can work in very small spaces. So we can be as small as 250 to 300 square feet. So you get that rent down, and typically in malls, rent is a lot higher than it would be on the street front. But because we can work in the small spaces, your overall rent works. And then the food cost is advantaged because of potatoes and hot dogs, which provides a lower food cost as well as a lower labor cost in the production of it and the way that we've designed the restaurants. So we have this really advantaged economic model, number one. And a lot of times when brands will come to Canada, food cost is typically a bit higher in Canada, and they might have misjudged some of the economic model things as well. So I think it's, hey, is the product truly outstanding? And then 2 does the economic model work? So Starbucks, I would say Starbucks coffee, they have a very, people love Starbucks and they love their product, right? And that product has transcended really well. Where Tim Hortons, the reason Tim Hortons is so successful in Canada is, people have loved the brand because it was a Canadian brand for so many years. Right. So, and I don't know what the U.S. consumer thinks of the coffee at Tim Hortons, but certainly in Canada, they love the brand, maybe more so than the product. Right? So I think the product is king, and then making sure you have an economic model that works is the key part of it.
I imagine too, there's a real community element here, and I'm curious about this from the perspective of franchising. To grow internationally, you basically have to do that through franchising, if only because to have operators in the communities that you want to grow into. I mean, yes, it's easier for you in Canada to open a corporate-owned store in the U.S. and it not be so much a stretch, or it's not confusing to you. But the franchisee is going to really know their community obviously better than you. So franchising, it just seems like, are you guys exclusively franchised? Is that like the whole, like 100% all you want to do for growth?
Primarily, yeah. I mean, there might be opportunities where we do corporately to enter a market, but right now the focus is on franchise. We like the franchise model. We just believe that there's no one who's more committed to making something a success than an owner operator. Because of the advantage economic model of New York Fries, we think it's very attractive for investors. The low labor model, the small size, the lower CapEx investment to get into sort of the restaurant space. And so we really believe that franchising is the way to go. We're also, we're in the process of building our U.S. infrastructure right now. So we do have some infrastructure set up with operations and marketing and sourcing. But we just fundamentally believe that people in their market, they know the right construction companies, they know the right, they know the local suppliers. If they want to bring in some local thing that may make sense for a topping on their New York fries along with the core menu. And so we really believe that franchising is the right way to go because, the U.S. is a big and diverse market, and tastes in the South and Southeast are different than the Northwest. And so we know that, and the key is letting our franchisees that are in part of that market become our real partners in growing the brand.
Sure. Okay, let's talk about malls. When I get an email saying, "Hey, this brand is really going to grow through malls," I'm skeptical. I'm thinking, well, are malls is that still a thing? Because of course the mall industry hit hard times 10 years ago. Certainly, the pandemic wasn't very friendly to the mall category. But I don't know malls that well. I only know the malls that I see in my own community. Give me the case for malls. Are malls making a comeback?
Yeah, I mean, so malls typically are categorized of A, B, C, D malls and AAA malls. What we're seeing both in Canada and in the US is that, those typically AAA to A to B malls are growing and people are going more. And what's actually happening is the mall landlords are making large investments, adding a lot of density, whether it's condos or other entertainment hubs around these malls and really turning them into an entertainment destination. So almost all the malls that we've been to and visited and toured with the mall landlords, it's actually very impressive and massive capital investments going into a lot of them, as well as the retailers putting massive capital investments into them. A great example is the Apple store, right? The Apple is the most profitable retailer in the world. And typically that's the sign of a great mall. And Apple is the ultimate digital company, and they're investing in retail and continue to grow and grow locations. So there's no question that the world of e-commerce has grown, is going to continue to grow. But even in markets such as Korea, people still go to malls. They still want to congregate. They may end up using it more as a showcasing location, but they're at the malls. They're using it as a destination hub. They're using it as a place to meet. So malls, they've been around for a long time, and we believe are going to continue to be around for a long time and continue to grow. And even in Canada, we've had all the same reports about the death of the mall, and we've had nothing but growth in mall traffic in Canada for years, and we see the same thing in the U.S. So I would say there are malls that have suffered through that, some of the D malls, but anywhere where you're seeing those large retailers investing is where you're really seeing the growth.
Tell me what you think about the sort of mall of the future, because as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. I think about some of my local malls. But as I see it, as I understand, sort of like the cooler malls, you could say, and the ones that I perceive as growing, it's not just a collection of retail shops, right? It's got the movie theater nowadays. It's got the entertainment complex. It's got the chef-driven restaurant, not just the standard food court. It's as much a lifestyle center, I guess you could say, as it is a destination to shop. Is that line up with what you see as the future of malls, and is that what you guys aim for to get a New York Fries into?
Yeah, so we want malls with traffic, and we want malls with good food court traffic, and so there's a lot of malls, particularly on the East Coast and West Coast of the U.S. that are very, very great. Mall of America, the new Dream Mall is absolutely phenomenal. You could go to Dream Mall for probably a week and never see the sunlight, based on all the things to do, from indoor skiing to an indoor water park to an indoor amusement park to premium shopping to premium dining experiences to QSR food courts. So we really see growth in really two areas. One is we see the AAA malls continuing to invest. The retailers are investing as well. The retailers such as Dick's are actually building whole fields connected to malls. So it becomes this whole destination for families on the weekend where they'll play games outside and shop and bring people to the mall. So there's all sorts of innovation happening like that with retailers. Malls are adding a lot of density in terms of condos around them. And using all that sort of really valuable real estate to build density, and then having that entertainment hub that's there. And we're also seeing growth of outdoor malls. So you're seeing more and more outdoor malls. Probably 10 years ago, if someone would have told you, hey, there'll be outdoor walking malls in Canada, people probably would have said, no way. And, they're popping up everywhere, and they're hugely successful. So, there's no shortage of mall innovation, and you just think of the capital and the desire for humans to congregate. Certainly, the very, very sophisticated operators, very well capitalized operators, and we see malls continue to be a place where people go, and you go and people want snacks when they go to them. You have a pretzel place at every entrance. You've got the food court, you've got other locations throughout the mall where people can dine, and people are really using it as entertainment destinations, which is why we think New York Fries works so well, because it's both a snack and a meal depending on how you're consuming that mall that day.
Everything you just described to me is like experience, right? And I feel like I've been talking about experience ad nauseum for the last 4 or 5 years now, but it's like it is experience. I mean, all the restaurants out there are really trying to create a great experience, and same goes for the malls. And so it's not just again your experience is you come here and shop. Now it is you come here and shop and you ski and you swim and you eat and you do all these things. But to that end, you guys being very much tied at the hip to these malls, how do you create an experience within that experience? What does experience mean for you when you guys have a spot in a mall and are confined to what you can do within that?
Yeah, great question. And, first and foremost, having the right team at the store, sampling, getting people to try the product. Typically in a food court, which is where we operate primarily because of the need for venting, you have people that, a group of people will be together and each of them will choose something different. So the one thing that New York Fries really offers as part of that experience is that speed. So you're not sitting there waiting for your food while all your friends are sitting down and are done by the time you show up with your tray sort of thing. And so New York Fries offers that speed. It also offers variety. So whether it's a full meal, a hot dog and a loaded fry, or just that snack. So you have that experience where it's sort of choose your own adventure, where that is fast and you can get exactly what you want. And you could load the things however you want, depending on the toppings that interest you, whether it's spicy or indulgent or savory or whatever it may be, is really the key. So, and it's that smile from the associate, right? So we're really, really big on, our associates should be asking for the sales as people come by and giving those samples out and really trying to drive that traffic. It's not a passive activity in the food court. It's an active activity of trying to generate the business. And we've done different things with DJs in different locations and spinning wheels for people to try to pinwheels for people to try to win prizes and just generating excitement around the mall and having some fun, right? And again, back to that entertainment experience.
Related to that, then, would you guys explore other non-traditional destinations like airports and college university? Is that also in the cards?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So that's, we have them here in Canada. Anywhere where there's high foot traffic, we have highway stops here in Canada. We're looking at expanding internationally in airports as well. So there's anywhere where there's foot traffic and kind of that captive audience that's looking for a snack or a meal, that's where New York Fries works really, really well. So, and that's why in the US where you've got a lot more, I'm going to say pedestrian malls or walking malls, that's where a little New York Fries kiosk could work extremely well because it can work in that really small space. It's that foot traffic where you have that desire for a snack is where New York Fries works, right? Is to build a big box on the side of a highway where, a whole family has to pull off and eat sort of a snack is less of the need for New York Fries. It's more about being in that sort of high foot traffic area. And because we're that smaller box with the, lower labor model and the lower food costs, it allows us to pay the rent that you typically have to pay in those really high traffic areas and still make the economic model work, where a lot of other concepts struggle to work in those areas because the rent is just too high to be able to afford within the labor and food cost model.
Sure. I imagine too, you mentioned kiosk. I mean, do you have mostly kiosk, or what's the mix of like the kiosk type versus the sort of inline food court kind of type?
Yeah, we require venting because we do use fryers. So we're primarily in food courts and malls because that's where they have the venting. But, it depends. But if you're outdoor, venting is a lot easier than inside a mall. So that's kind of, as I mentioned, kiosk could be more of a kiosk in a walking mall sort of area where you could set up sort of a little area, a little store or a little storefront.
It makes me think of, we've been following, I'm sure you've been following this too, the coffee drive-through surge that's been going on lately with brands here like Dutch Bros and Seven Brew. And it's so much oriented around shrink the footprint and put it into any little corner of the community. And it makes me just think of that. I don't know if you guys are thinking about drive-thrus anytime soon, but again, it gets back to how do I get people in and out and build a model that is small, affordable, and efficient so I can really put it kind of anywhere. I mean, when I think about this, obviously you guys have this lane you're focused on, but you must also be thinking about, there are opportunities because you could put this little footprint into more than just the non-traditional space. I imagine there's a lot of different places you could put these in.
Yeah, exactly. Universities, colleges, airports, train stations, malls, anywhere where you have that foot traffic, outdoor centers, ballparks, anywhere where you have that foot traffic, where you can, you've got that little corner, even in Canada, how the team grew is they were taking space that the malls couldn't really figure out what to do with that space. They're like, well, we got this 300 square foot corner. What the hell do we do with this? We can't really rent it. Well, New York Fries can go into those corners. And that's really where the magic lies for New York Fries, because we can get into that small space and really work.
And is a lot of this dependent on the franchisee? As you guys are now growing through franchising, are you looking for franchisees to partner with on finding those locations? Tell me about that process.
So it will be a partnership. So we are looking to build out a real estate team to support it. But we really, again, believe that franchisees, know their market better than anyone. So we do want to find people that want to have multi-unit deals and have the sophistication and some of the contacts to be able to understand where they want to be in the market. High foot traffic areas are usually pretty easily definable. Where are the big malls in the region? What are the walking malls in the region? And then you tour them, and then you make connections with the landlords and go from there. So I'd say it's easier and a little bit more straightforward than I would say street front brands, where you're kind of looking to go anywhere on a busy road. There's a lot more busy roads than there is really high foot traffic areas. So the high foot traffic areas are easier to pinpoint, and then you're a little bit more, it's easier to laser focus on the areas that you need.
Got it. Okay, Dave, last question for you. You guys seem to be on the cusp of something big here. You're coming back into the States, you're franchising. I mean, to me, when I think America and French fries and franchising, I think, there's a lot of potential here for growth. Say you and I connect again in 5 years for a follow-up to this. What do you hope to have accomplished with New York Fries?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we've starting to work with some amazing partners. So the right franchise partners to build the brand. It's a premium brand. It takes focus on people that understand the focus on operations and partnership and want to build the brand with us. That's kind of first and foremost. Two is that anyone who's eaten it just loves it, and the product is just this winning product that people desire and build buzz. Really because of you're in those locations with the foot traffic and you've got that trial. And, in Canada, New York Fries, and this is the long-term vision, but in Canada, New York Fries is over $100 million business. And Canada is exactly 10% the size of the US. And in everything you measure in different businesses, it's always a 1 to 10 ratio. So we do believe that New York Fries has a $1 billion opportunity in the US over 20, 30 years. So my hope is that if we have the right partners and we got the right consumer feedback, that we have the opportunity to build this to that level. And because of the economic model that New York Fries offers, it really allows people to be able to scale it because of the lower CapEx, the advantage food cost, the advantage labor cost, and the smaller spaces. So you can get into those really high rent areas. We believe it's an advantaged opportunity, and we've just candidly run out of space in Canada. There's no more malls to go to. That makes sense. So we got to go somewhere. Otherwise, you got to grow somehow. So no, but kidding aside, we really believe that, we've done our research before we went down, and we knew that there was a desire for the product. The reviews have been really, really great from guests. And really it's about just slowly building the brand. It takes time to build the brands. When Shake Shack comes to Canada, everybody knows Shake Shack. In Canada because of its U.S. presence. So New York Fries, it's a new brand, so it's going to take time to build, and so that's where we want the right partners and working on the right deals with them.
It's very exciting to watch. Maybe we'll do that follow-up call in 30 years, and we'll say, "Hey, was this $1 billion brand? Maybe it'll be even bigger. Exactly. Maybe it'll be a $10 billion brand. We'll see." Yeah. Dave Colebrook of Recipe and New York Fries, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
That was my interview with New York Fries' Dave Colebrook. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 4 takeaways. My first takeaway is that malls are not dead. You might think they're dead, but they're not. Malls, you've probably seen some empty, derelict malls, maybe in your neighborhood or in your travels. And yes, there are many malls that did not survive. E-commerce did not survive the pandemic, but a lot of malls survived and even thrived. The truth of the matter is, as Dave and I talked about in this interview, is that people want to congregate. They want to be social. They want experiences. And malls are actually rising up to meet that occasion, even if it's not every mall. A lot of malls are becoming travel destinations. So not just retail shops, but movie theaters, entertainment, fine dining restaurants. You probably have some in your marketplace and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But those are the kind of malls that New York Fries is thriving in. And this is why Dave says this brand is so interested in malls. They've really tapped out all the Canadian malls. Now they're looking at US malls. These malls that are thriving, they have high foot traffic. If you can have a small footprint operation that is that can serve a product very quickly, if you put that in a high foot traffic destination like these popular malls, then it's a recipe for success. And that's why this company has malls in their crosshairs, and why probably a lot more brands are going to be looking at malls going forward, so long as these sort of destination type malls are what you're looking at. My second takeaway is that sampling is the perfect marketing for high foot traffic destinations. So Dave says in these malls where New York Fries is in operation, where there is a lot of foot traffic, the best way to introduce customers to their brand is just to get the product in their mouths. This is kind of restaurant 101, but it's worth noting in this era of suburban growth, in this era of finding these locations where that traffic is going to be and trying to get their attention, opening locations in non-traditional type markets, for example, like malls, like airports. The best way to capture the attention of that captivated customer is by giving them free product. Once you do that, they taste it, they know they like it, they're going to show up and order some for themselves. As I mentioned in this interview, the smell doesn't hurt either. When I walk through a mall, I know that when I smell something that smells delicious, I am likely to go in that direction and get me some. But if you can get the product for free into somebody's mouth, they are very likely to then eat it. And when you have all of these customers in front of you in a place like a mall, then that's a perfect opportunity to do it. I wanted to also mention this quote from Dave from this interview that I thought was great. It's not a passive activity in the food court. So again, when you think of malls and restaurants, you're thinking of the boring old food court where not much is happening, but people swinging when they're hungry. No, the new opportunity in malls is to be active, to get out there, to be a part of the experience in this, very busy destination. That's a lifestyle destination ultimately for families and for customers. And if you can be active in that marketing, get the product in the customer's mouth, you're doing the best kind of marketing you can do. My third takeaway is that speed of service is everything in busy destinations. So, okay, you've got this high foot traffic destination like a mall, a popular mall in a big city. Lots of people are there for the weekend. You're getting product in people's mouths. You've got a crush of customers. You need to turn around that product quickly. Your throughput has got to be top notch. And as such, for a brand like New York Fries, Dave explained that they had to get the product and the equipment just right so that they can turn around an order in 30 seconds. If you can't do that, you have no business being in a busy mall or an airport or wherever it is. You need to have your process down pat to go very, very quickly so you can turn that throughput. And whether it's at a 3 p.m. Snack time, a 12 o'clock lunch rush, whenever it is, if you're not prepared to turn out your customers quickly, that's all going to fall apart. And this whole model of being in this high foot traffic destination is not going to work for you. My fourth and final takeaway is that a strong product plus good economics helps a brand transcend borders. Listen, talking about a brand growing from the U.S. to Canada or Canada to the U.S. is like, this is the sort of the easiest international market to grow into. But there are some differences, and I think it's important to study how a concept can grow into a country like Canada from the U.S. or vice versa in preparation for further international expansion. I've talked about on this podcast before, but I think international growth is picking up some momentum. There is a lot of opportunity there and a lot of demand. But to get it right, Dave said it really well here to talk about what it takes to grow into international markets. He said, if you have a great product that you can serve consistently and you've got a strong economic model, then you can kind of take that brand, in most markets around the world because it's a craveable product. People like good food, right? You're serving it consistently. So it's the same in the US as it is in Canada, as it is in Brazil, as it is in, Mexico and China. But then that economic model has to be there. You have to have strong unit economics like a New York Fries that has this small footprint, this efficient business model, can turn the product out quickly. That's when you know that you have an international success on your hands, is when you have all of those elements working in your favor. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again and talk to you next week.